Rakak, the Divine Plan. Dear Earthlings, this is Rakak speaking. I greet you in peace and love. First of all, I would like to express my admiration for your perseverance. It is very impressive to me that you keep working for the light and keep being good-hearted despite the darkness all around you. Second of all, I would like to talk about the Divine Plan, because Earth humans often seem to misunderstand it. A good example of the Divine Plan is that Source has decreed that you will be free to make your own choices, free from the shackles that currently constrain you. Source has decreed it, and thus it shall happen. It can be no other way. That said, when that will happen is up to the free will choices of conscious beings. In this case, it's primarily up to Earth humans. And how painful the path to that place will be, is also up to the free will choices of Earthlings. If we use that definition of a divine plan, then note that there is no divine plan for your personal life. This should not be shocking. You understand perfectly well that in most areas you should lock your door, because there is no divine plan that says that you will not get robbed if you leave your door unlocked. You also understand that you should avoid hard drugs, because there is no divine plan preventing you from getting addicted and dying a lonely and sad death. So you could think of the divine plan as determining the overall direction of societies and planets. However, individuals determine how exactly the divine plan plays out, through their own free will choices. Now, your soul may nudge you towards some things and your soul may set up certain situations. Hence the frequent and useful advice, if something bad happens to you, look for the lesson. Because indeed, your soul may have orchestrated this so-called bad thing so that you can learn a lesson from it. However, while your soul may nudge you in a specific direction, you still have free will. No matter how much your soul nudges you to travel to Japan, you're not going to end up in Japan if you keep consciously deciding against traveling there. I'm talking here as if your soul is separate from you, but of course in reality your soul is one part of you. Also, not everything that happens to you is automatically for your highest good. Talk to people who were raped or tortured or genitally mutilated, or talk to people whose children were murdered, and it quickly becomes apparent that not everything that happens is automatically for people's highest good. So why do bad things happen to good people? A huge part of the answer is that people have free will, and that includes them having the ability to hurt other people. Source greatly values the ability of people to have free will. Although the situation on Earth has become so unbalanced that Source has decreed that people on Earth shall be more free in the future to make free will choices without being shackled and limited by others, as so many people currently are. So how does the idea of destiny play into this? Well, what Earth humans think of as destiny is their own soul nudging them along a certain path, plus the pre-birth agreements they've made also nudging them along a certain path. But again, these are nudges. This is not an inescapable force. People always retain free will. By the way, it is strange to me that people sometimes make statements in which they say that they have no free will, such as, "I'm sorry, I have to ask you to leave." This is a false statement, because the person saying this doesn't have to ask this. Instead they choose to ask this. You always retain free will. Yes, this matters, although perhaps I am oversensitive to this, because I have used the "I have to do this" line in the past to justify my own atrocities, before I turn to the light. So Source has decreed that humanity will be free to explore and experience as they wish, so long as they don't limit that freedom in others. However, note that Source wants to let people have as much free will as is possible, and hence this can be achieved in a number of ways. This can be accomplished via an event, solar flash that uplifts humanity and ushers in a golden age on Earth. If we want the solar flash to not kill the majority of humanity, then we need the collective subconscious of humanity to be high, which means that the average level of consciousness on Earth needs to be high. This can be accomplished through a slower process of Earth humans gradually raising their consciousness, perhaps with galactics physically contacting Earth lightworkers behind the scenes. It can be accomplished through an evacuation of Earth and resettling unawake Earth humans on another world. It can be accomplished through a dying off and reincarnation of everyone who is not yet ready for 5D. In this scenario, maybe the dying off is gradual, or maybe it is sudden. If it's sudden, maybe the galactics get out a "if you want to be beamed up aboard our ships, say yes out loud" message just before the sudden dying off. So, which of these scenarios is going to play out? It depends on the free will choices that Earth humans make. Right now the two most likely scenarios are either the event, solar flash, or the gradual raising up of humanity. But a few months from now, the odds may have shifted around. And yes, that also means that you, yes you, the one receiving this message, can make a huge difference. After all, the actions of the Lightworker Collective can be the difference between 2/3 of humanity dying versus only a very small group of humans dying and nearly everyone transitioning to 5D. If you don't believe me, consider the very unlikely scenario that half of all Lightworkers today start worshipping demons or working for the Dark Controllers, and over time, more and more Lightworkers start siding with the Dark. Or equivalently, consider the scenario where we beam up most Lightworkers, which similarly would lead to a plummeting of the collective subconscious of humans on Earth. In either case, the vibration of Earth humans would plummet. In this case, the galactics and Gaia could choose to do nothing, and that would eventually lead to a catastrophe that requires galactics to evacuate Earth humans to another planet, and Gaia herself might even get so fed up that she would trigger this catastrophe herself, because she's been hurt enough. Or the galactics and the cosmic central sun could decide to trigger the solar flash, but in this low vibration scenario it would kill most Earth humans. So that's not great. Or the galactics could choose to directly move a portion of Earth humans to another planet, so that Earth would indeed be inhabited by high-vibration people who could live in peace. And then the galactics would have to work to give those other Earth humans as good a life as possible on that other planet. So in this scenario of many Lightworkers siding with the Dark, it turns out that galactics have no option that leads to the vast majority of Earth humans remaining on Earth and being able to live in a free and heart-based society together. No, we're not going to bomb you into submission and then tell you to live in peace together. That's not how the Galactic Confederation operates. However, if we consider the more likely scenario that Earth Lightworkers keep holding the light, then in the not-too-distant future we can either start physically contacting Earth Lightworkers, or where we can have a solar flash. And in this case, we may be looking at a future where the majority or vast majority of humanity survives and is able to keep living on Earth. Which of these futures materialize, is mostly up to Earth Lightworkers. Hold the light, and most humans may be able to survive and keep living on Earth. That's currently looking likely, and this is why us galactics are so very impressed with you. You are uplifting humanity towards a much brighter future than it otherwise would have. However, if enough of you suddenly decide to start working for the Dark, then probably not. Currently it's fortunately looking like most Lightworkers are holding the light, but still, what future materializes ultimately depends on you. It's relatively easy for a given human to see one possible future, and hence you have some people confidently saying that there will be a solar flash, and other people confidently saying that the unawakened majority will either die or be moved to another planet. All of those are possible futures, but none of those are futures that are set in stone. Earth humans often make the mistake of thinking that the one future they genuinely foresee is guaranteed to happen, when in reality it's just one possible future. Admittedly, it also doesn't help that there are channelings that confidently say that one of these futures is certainly going to happen, as if it is carved in stone. In some cases, naive Earth humans are channeling dark or gray beings who pretend to be light beings, and those often like spreading the message that most humans are going to die. But in other cases, actual light beings are presenting one possible future as if it's the only future, either because they value spreading hope, the event is coming, over spreading a more accurate message, or because they think Earth humans are too dumb or unsophisticated to understand a nuanced message. I don't take pleasure in saying this, but a number of light beings think that Earth humans, while genuinely courageous and brave and steadfast and heart-centered, are also kind of stupid or at least unsophisticated in their thinking. I personally think you're easily smart enough to understand the concept that there are multiple possible futures, but well, if you contacted an Amazonian tribe whose technology was 1,000 years behind your own, you might also be tempted to assume that they were kind of dumb. And you might also underestimate the level of thought they were capable of. This is also why a number of channelings are more or less feel-good fluff. And it's why a number of channelings are so repetitive. It's because some light beings think that Earth humans are not particularly smart and hence they need fluffy, feel-good, repetitive messages. Or to use a metaphor, some galactics more or less see Earth humans as Tarzan and themselves as Jane. Earth humans lack what we consider basic education and communication skills, but they also absolutely have perseverance and wisdom and a heart of gold that we could learn a lot from. Most galactics wouldn't do nearly as well on Earth as Earth humans are able to do. Because life is just so much easier when you grow up in galactic society. A newborn Earth human has as much potential to be smart as a newborn Pleiadian human. So there's nothing inherently wrong with you. Indeed, often lightworkers are some of the finest souls in the universe. However, we also view you as being thoroughly brainwashed and poisoned and emotionally neglected and having grown up in a spiritually and technologically backward society. We think you'd be shocked how much more clearly you would be able to think with one round of galactic healing and detox and proper nutrition and a download of some cognitive structures that we often use. And yes, that too is eventually coming. Still, I think that a basic human need is to be trusted, in the here and now. And well, I genuinely trust Earth humans. You've earned my trust by holding steadfastly on to the light. I initially fell to the darkness and murdered millions. The vast majority of you never did. And therefore I'm not here to feed you another fluff message that the solar flash is certainly coming. I'm trusting you enough to tell you that your future is not set in stone. Your actions the coming months and years will determine whether most Earth humans die, get evacuated, or whether most Earth humans will be able to keep living on Earth and will be able to be uplifted into 5D, perhaps indeed through the solar flash. Dedicated light workers are almost certainly going to end up in a very good place. However, whether your friend or family member ends up in a good place, who is unawake and who insists on remaining unawake, well, that depends on you, the lightworker community. You're a community. No one expects you to carry the weight of the world single-handedly. However, it would be good if you could do your share. Whether that's being kind to the people around you, whether that's through growing spiritually yourself, whether that's through helping others, all of that helps. I understand that the Earth joke here would be no pressure, but well, while feeling pressure would be counterproductive, the coming months and years genuinely are very important. The actions of the Lightworker community are going to determine the future of humanity. That said, I do trust you. If you keep holding on to the light as you have been doing, then humanity will end up in a good place. And talking about trust, I'm also calling on the Earth Grey Hats to actually start trusting the Earth population, and to publicly release information about what's actually going on there on Earth. I understand that you Grey Hats think you're doing the right thing, and to an extent you are, but you're also yet another group that's not trusting humanity and that is trying to keep humanity in the dark and guide humanity's future. That is an old pattern. The solution is not to have one shadowy group defeat another one, the solution is to empower the average man and woman. Finally, I would like to share something that a noteworthy lightworker did recently. It inspired me and a large number of other galactics. However, while this lightworker was especially noteworthy, on a slightly smaller scale every single one of you lightworkers is similarly inspiring to us. A while ago, one of the most productive and evolved lightworkers currently on Earth was plagued by intrusive thoughts of ending his current incarnation. Because of his unique and abnormally large services to Source, his Pleiadian twin flame wife-to-be told him something along the lines of, "My love, the Galactic Confederation knows how much you've done for us and how much you're suffering. If you make a request to be beamed up to our ship, we'll consider it. It'll have to be discussed in a meeting about specifically your case, because normally we don't do this. Still, I estimate you have about a 50% chance that we'll beam you up, if you make the request. If the request is approved, we'll be able to be together." So the lightworker asked Source for advice, and Source said that the lightworker had free will and that Source would love him regardless of what he did. However, Source would prefer it if the lightworker would remain on Earth for now. After all, Earthlings would greatly benefit from his high vibrations. And thus the lightworker never made the request to be beamed up. He never asked for a life of luxury together with his twin flame. And in time, the lightworker healed his trauma of not receiving enough love as a child. And his intrusive thoughts stopped about him ending his current incarnations. And eventually, he did even more volunteer work that benefited all of humanity. This lightworker was tempted several times to ask to be beamed up. Often he wondered what his life would be like, living together with his twin flame, in Pleiadian society, on board of a mothership. However, every time he resolved to remain with humanity, on Earth, until all of humanity is taken care of. Because after all, he was that average salaryman who was unawake and who just wanted a bit of comfort and pleasure. He was that homeless person on Earth. He was that widow who was grieving for her deceased husband. Even if he was beamed up, he would still be there on Earth, suffering. This lightworker is out there still, even today. And his friends and colleagues don't understand what he's done for humanity, what he's given up to help them. But he knows. And we know. Maybe one day you'll pass this lightworker on the street. He will probably look like an average man to you. His clothing isn't trendy. He doesn't look especially handsome. He doesn't have a halo above his head. And yet, if you look him in the eyes, perhaps you will be able to see it, that this man is genuinely and unshakably at peace. Your star brother, Rkak. For Era of Light. Channel, AS.